These have become foundational in my Christian walk, in my counseling, and in my teaching and preaching. Finally, the spiritual exercises called me to a more physical discipleship and to a profound freedom with Christ. As I learned to pray with my imagination and my five senses, I discovered a deep desire to experience God's greater glory in this wonderful and broken world. A brief history of sacred listening. As I finished the spiritual exercises in the spring of 1985, I began to consider how I might adapt them for use by others who do not have access to a spiritual director. My director used a guidebook published by John A. Veltri, S.J., and based the meditations on a very literal translation of the spiritual exercises. My experience with these guides was excellent, and yet the material as written posed many problems as I considered giving the spiritual exercises to leaders in Protestant congregations. I began reworking and paraphrasing the spiritual exercises so that they could be used by Protestant Christians with minimal supervision from a trained spiritual director. This means I have had to wrestle with the dynamics of the exercises in sufficient depth to anticipate most of the common stumbling blocks. I have made many changes as I continue to listen and to train other listeners with encouraging results. I have had many collaborators, and it is only right to recognize them here. I field tested my first revision with congregational leaders at Sunrise Baptist Church in West Jordan, Utah, in the summer of 1985, stretching into spring of 1986. These 11 adults were patient with many problems, and I learned much from them and their struggles. After I shared some of these adventures at a meeting for local clergy, the Reverend Tom Ashbrook asked me to train his leadership team at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church in Sandy, Utah. These 27 adults offered many helpful comments between October 1986 and April 1987. A group of mental health workers heard about these adventurous Lutherans and asked me to guide them into contemplative prayer beginning in September 1987, stretching through April 1988. This group, coordinated by Dr. Linda Webster, allowed me an excellent opportunity to discuss many of the difficulties that might be encountered as persons pray with these exercises. I used parts of our original Sacred Listening Manual in many of the classes I taught at the Utah Institute for Biblical Studies over the next decade. Tom Ashbrook and I self-published the manual in 1986 at Good Shepherd. I revised the manual again in 1990 and mailed it to many of the authorities I most respected. Several of these authors and spiritual directors offered suggestions and encouragement, prompting another revision in 1992. Tom had moved to a new congregation, and so this version was published by Our Savior's Lutheran Church in Lake Oswego, Oregon. Minor revisions occurred when we used the manual with various groups. For a graduate seminar on spiritual direction at Salt Lake Theological Seminary in 1999, for undergraduate courses on Christian discipleship at Marquette University in 2001 and 2002, with two more large groups at Good Shepherd Lutheran Church